Good morning, dear students. I am Sampat Bhadu, Assistant Professor of English, Government College, Sri Dungargad, Bikaner. Today, we are going to take up Part 6 of As You Like It. In this series of lectures, today we will discuss Act 3 of the play. Scene first. This is a very brief scene. The scene shifts to the castle. One finds Duke Frederick rebuking Oliver for his inability to discover Orlando's whereabouts. He commands him to find him, or else suffer the seizure of his lands and banishment from his home. Oliver appears frightened. He says that he has never loved his brother at all. He vows that he will seek him with all his ability. The Duke behaves cynically, whimsically. After ordering Oliver from the room, he orders his officers to seize Oliver's lands anyway, even though the 12-month period of grace has just begun. Now, scene second of Act 3 starts. This scene opens on Orlando's fastening a piece of paper to a tree. From his talk, the audience discovers that the paper containing love poetry dedicated to Rosalind. It becomes clear that Rosalind has completely captured Orlando's heart. The poetry goes like this: Hang there, my verse, in witness of my love, and thou, thrice crowned queen of night, survey with thy chaste eye from thy pale sphere above thy huntress name, that my full life doth sway. O Rosalind, these trees shall be my books, and in their barks my thoughts I will charter, that every eye which in this forest looks shall see thy virtue witnessed everywhere. Now, Corin and Touchstone talk with each other. Orlando's rough studies are interrupted by the entrance of Corin, the shepherd, and the Touchstone, the clown. They discuss the shepherd's life, and Touchstone is ambivalent about its appeal. Truly, shepherd in respect of itself. It's a good life, but in respect that it is a shepherd's life, it is not. In respect that it is solitary. I like it very well, but in respect that it is private. It's a very wild life. Now, in respect it is in the fields, it pleaseth me well, but in regard to is not in the court. It is tedious, as it is a spare life. Look you, it fits my humor well, but as there is no more plenty in it, it goes much against my stomach. Hast any philosophy in thee, shepherd? This indecisive vein continues for some time. The two men discuss the merits of their respective environments. Corin comments unkindly on some of the more foolish aspects of court behavior. Touchstone retaliates with unkind remarks about the country. After the debate between Corin and Touchstone, Rosalind as Ganymede enters the scene reading love poetry which has been addressed to her. Touchstone, as usual, makes some cynical comments on the subject of love, but Rosalind's quick tongue does not let him get on unchecked. Then Celia's enter. She is also reading poetry describing the effect of Rosalind's charms. Corinne and Touchstone leave, saying that all this love and poetry is too much for them. Now, a conversation takes place between Jakes and Orlando. Rosalind comes to know from Celia that her beloved Orlando is himself in the neighborhood. She becomes very much perplexed. She certainly cannot let him see her dressed as a man and still expect to keep his affection. When Orlando and Jakes suddenly interrupt the girls' conversation, they hide to watch the two men. Jakes, as usually, speaks as the hater of man. He begs Orlando to leave him alone with his gloom. During the conversation, Orlando reveals his love for Rosalind. Jakes chides him, scolds him, saying that the worst fault is to be in love. Then Jakes leaves to look for Touchstone. Rosalind is heard confiding a plot to Celia. She says that she will remain in her male attire and play the sensi lackey, that is impertinent manservant, to Orlando in an attempt to draw him out on the subject of love. Now the conversation takes place, Rosalind and Orlando. Scene 2 is a long one, it's full of actions. Now follows the first real dialogue between Rosalind and Orlando. Rosalind is, of course, still disguised as Ganymede. Rosalind mocks Orlando for being less than a true lover. She means to suggest that his emotion is not exaggerated enough for Elizabethan standards. They talk about time, that undependable element which gallops when it should go slowly and is slow to move when it should fleet fast. The conversation proceeds as a series of riddles, with Orlando asking the questions and Rosalind providing answers. After they have analyzed the inconsistencies of time, Rosalind and Orlando discuss the nature of woman. Rosalind makes fun of them. She laughs at Orlando for being so foolish as to love a woman. Again, she upbraids Orlando for lacking the symptoms of a true lover. A lean cheek which you have not. Here, who speaks? Here, Rosalind speaks to Orlando. A lean cheek which you have not, a blue eye and sunken which you have not, an unquestionable spirit which you have not, a beard neglected which you have not. But I pardon you for that, for simply your having in beard is a younger brother's revenue. Then you hose your hose should be ungartered, your bonnet unbanded, your sleeve unbuttoned, your shoe untied, and everything about you demonstrating a careless desolation. But you are no such man. You are rather point device in your accountments as loving yourself than seeming the lover of any other. Here, Rosalind accuses Orlando of not being in love, not being a true lover, simply because, and in the eye of this Rosalind, Orlando doesn't demonstrate any kind of symptoms or any kind of signs of being true love, true lover. So, stung by her taunts, Orlando defends her feelings for the absent Rosalind. Rosalind offers to cure him of his affection, but Orlando refuses the offer. After a long conversation, the two decide that Ganymede will pretend to be Rosalind and Orlando will woo his mistress through his agent. Now, scene 3 of Act 3 starts. In this scene, the focus shifts to another pair of lovers, Touchstone and Audrey, the country wench who is being wooed by the clown. Touchstone expresses his love in considerably less poetic terms than Orlando. He tries to woo Audrey with poetry, but Audrey does not know the meaning of the word poetical. So his job is difficult. Touchstone states his wish to marry Audrey. He also indicates the neighboring vicar, Sir Oliver Martext, has consented to wed them. Immediately after Touchstone tells Audrey that he would like to marry her, the neighboring vicar, Sir Oliver Martext, appears. He is surprised at the prospect of this unorthodox ceremony where there is none to give the woman. Touchstone gives a brutal answer that he would not take his wife as the gift of any man. Martext is dismayed by the prospect of marrying these people, but he is even more dismayed and amazed when they suddenly decide that they will not be married at all. Touchstone, for reasons not revealed to the audience, abruptly takes Audrey off to find another vicar. His concluding remarks about his little verse are quite appropriate to his obviously dishonorable intentions. Poor Sir Oliver, who has no idea of what has been going on, is left to vow that never a fantastical knave of them shall flout me out of my calling. Now, scene 4. The scene again shifts to Celia and Rosalind. They are distressed by Orlando's reluctance or unwillingness in keeping an appointment with Ganymede. Rosalind appears very much like the typical girl in love. She criticizes Orlando for his rudeness. When Celia joins in the criticism, she suddenly reverses herself and defends him. The two girls are joined by Corin, who brings news of Orlando. He tells them to follow him to witness for themselves a forest lovers pageant. Now, scene 5. In this scene, we find the pageant truly played, which Corin referred to at the close of the previous scene. Sylvius and Phoebe, the shepherd and shepherdess, are courting in another part of this forest. Sylvius is extravagant in his praise of the girl. He is unrestrained in his pleas for her love. Phoebe, however, is scornful and uninterested in his protestations of love. Phoebe, the more Sylvius begs for her affection, the more insulting Phoebe becomes. Then Rosalind, in a long and impassioned speech, takes her to task for her lack of feeling. By my faith, I see no more in you than without candle may go dark to bed. Must you be therefore proud and pitiless? Why? What means this? Why do you look on me I see no more in you than in the ordinary of nature's sail work. Rosalind continues to attack Phoebe and to praise Sylvius. She says, "You foolish shepherd, you are 1,000 times properer man than she is a woman." Phoebe falls in love with Rosalind. Now, Rosalind is surprised to discover that her insults have an unexpected effect on Phoebe. She does not re evaluate her own charms. She does not see Sylvius, or rather with Ganymedes. Rosalind, however, has little interest in Phoebe's sudden affection. She says, "I pray you, do not fall in love with me. I like you not." She takes the shepherdess sternly to task and advises her to accept Sylvius' suit and leaves with Celia and Corin. After Rosalind departs, Phoebe goes on at great length, describing the depth of her feeling for this remarkable Ganymede. Phoebe's words are comically ironic to the audience who knows Ganymede's real identity. Phoebe goes on at length in this vein. She continues to insist that she has not fallen in love with Ganymede. Her words, however, reveal that she has certainly fallen in love with Ganymede. Poor Sylvius is somewhat puzzled at this turn of events. However, even Phoebe's fickleness does not weaken his love for her. He vows that he will live content if only Phoebe will lose now and then a scattered smile his way. The scene concludes with his promise to Phoebe, the will carry a taunting letter to Ganymede. The third act is an extremely complex and important one. It advances the actions and provides a series of ironic comments on the main themes of the play. At the beginning of the act, the plot is still fairly simple. The only love affair is that between Rosalind and Orlando. At its close, the plot has reversed itself several times, and half the inhabitants of Arden Forest have fallen in love. Of the major themes, the one which is most thoroughly developed here is that of love. We see several different types of affection displayed. We weigh each against the other. Rosalind and Orlando's honest emotion and graceful speech are contrasted to Touchstone and Audrey, who would be married under a bush like a beggar. Both of these are, in turn, illuminated by their juxtaposition to Sylvius and Phoebe. The theme of the pastoral, too, is investigated thoroughly in Act 3. The beginning of the act provides a vivid contrast. One moves from the threatening, stifling, cruelest atmosphere of the court to the forest with its scene of humor, love, and comradely fellowship. But the country life too is presented from a complex standpoint. Corin is a real shepherd. He bears little resemblance to the exaggerations of the love-sick Sylvius. Audrey is a real country woman. She can also be contrasted to Phoebe. Far from being able to make fun of her lover's poetry, she would be unable to recognize a poem if she heard one. The complexity of perspective in Act 3, heightened by the rapid juxtaposition of contrasting scenes. We rush from court to forest, from Rosalind disguised as Ganymede to the Rosalind who reveals her innermost feelings. One sees the contrast between court and forest, love and lust, grace and crudity. Throughout the act, one is faced with the challenge of keeping all these themes and presentations straight. Act 3 is the longest section of the play, and the one in which the action is the most thoroughly developed. In a scene, it can be said that the first two acts lead up to and prepare for its action, and that the remaining two summarize and conclude what has been developed there. That's all for today, and have a nice day. Thank you, dears.